all of those who have been touched. And during this last year, all of the law enforcement people and all of the firefighters who have been touched this year. Thank you very much. All right, we will begin, as we often do, with some comments from the commissioners. Do you have any today?
Yes, I do. I would, first of all, I have a guest this morning. My daughter, Deborah Mack, is in attendance, visiting from Washington, D.C. I just wanted to comment briefly regarding the weekend and the BET Live experience at BET experience at LA Live. The weekend was a phenomenal success in every respect. Great entertainment, all kinds of activities, both paid and free, including food and games and activities for young people and for the not so young. But it was a tremendous event, and it was expanded from traditionally BET just had an awards show, but this is an entire weekend where BET and AEG entered into a partnership, and they wanted to establish this as an annual event, and I think based upon the success, it will definitely become that. And wanted to particularly compliment the Los Angeles Police Department, in particular Commander Bill Scott, who was the incident commander, and all of the other men and women who did a great job of, on the one hand, providing the necessary public safety requirements, but doing it in a way that was respectful, and everybody was just in a good mood, and I think the police officers enjoyed themselves as well. But I did want to congratulate them, and particularly Incident Commander Scott and everybody else who did such a fantastic job.
Oh, yes.
Thank you, Madam President. I just wanted to share that I know Commissioner Druyan and I and the Chief, and I believe our President also, President Norton, we were all at the inauguration this past weekend, and that was a great day for the City of Los Angeles, and it was well run and just a marvelous time, and I think everyone had a good time, and we got to be there for Mayor Garcetti and City Attorney Fuhr and Controller Galpin and the members of the City Council, so it was a real pleasure to be there.
It was, with all the weather predictions, there was a little concern, but it was relaxed, and I think our park now has been an extraordinary addition to the City of Los Angeles, and people seemed extremely happy, and again, beautifully policed. A report of the Chief of Police.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Good morning.
You know, and also I would like to express my sorrow and condolences to the City of Prescott and to the families and friends and partners of the 19 firefighters who were killed this past week. Closer to home, but in the same vein of sacrifice, over the past week we have had 6 incidents where Los Angeles police officers have been targeted and attempt murders have been committed. First one, the Commission is well aware of, occurred in Wilshire area on June 25th when 2 detectives were during the early morning hours accessing the station via the parking lot and were attacked from behind by an armed gunman with whom they exchanged gunfire. That individual is escaped and is being pursued as we speak by Robbery Homicide Division. Photos have been made available to the public of an individual that we believe is the suspect, and we again ask the public's help in locating this individual. There is a $50,000 reward that has been posted for information leading to his capture. In 77th, or adjacent to 77th in the county, 77th gang officers along with county probation were doing probation and parole compliance searches when they were attacked, and one of our officers was wounded, and a probation officer was also wounded. Gunfire was exchanged with the suspect, who later died. I've been at bedside 3 times now with our injured officer. I was there yesterday. He is doing much better, but he has a long road to recovery. He suffered a gunshot wound to his jaw. It is a long period of reconstruction that commences. He's in good spirits, surrounded by his family and his partners, and I know that his courage is going to bring him through this. The probation officer's injuries were minor, and he is recovering. In West Valley area on the 28th, in the early morning hours, at the front lobby, an individual came and removed a knife and attempted to attack one of the officers in the lobby. He was captured after a struggle and has been booked for attempt murder. In Harbor area, police officers responding to a call of a man with a gun were met by a man with a gun who pointed a handgun at them. An officer-involved shooting occurred, and the suspect was injured. In Foothill area, on the 30th, midday, uniformed Foothill officers responded to a report of shots fired. They came upon an assault in progress where a gang member was shooting at other people. They became engaged in a running gun battle with that individual, and he was shot and killed. But our officers narrowly escaped with their lives in this particular instance. And then finally, on the 1st, in 77th area, officers responded to a disturbance call of a screaming child at a residence. When they went to the front of the location, they were met almost immediately with gunfire from an Uzi. Multiple rounds were fired at the officers. The officers were unable to return fire, but were able to protect themselves. And a barricaded suspect situation ensued, and the suspect was eventually taken into custody. All of these incidents, 6 in a week, of course, is extreme. Point out the dangers of policing in Los Angeles, and just how vigilant our officers have to be. On a much lighter note, Saturday was our Safe Summer Tip-Off. We had our 4th annual basketball contest with the fire department. Over 5,000 children attended. They were given a safety fair and a lot of tips about remaining safe during the summer. Got a lot of vocational advice about what they might want to do in the realm of public safety. Had a great basketball game. Arsenio Hall was our MC, and I want to thank him for that publicly. He's MC'd for the 4th year. The police department narrowly beat the fire department for the 4th year in a row, and we look forward to next year's contest. Now for crime stats, I'll be brief because my report ran a little long. We continue to show reductions in all 8 categories of Part 1 crime. Homicides down 13%, rapes down 29%, robberies down 13.9%, aggravated assaults down 9.9%. Overall violent crime in the city of Los Angeles as compared to last year, which was our best year ever, is down 12.8%. Property crime, unlike the rest of the state, is down 5.3% in the city of Los Angeles. Total Part 1 crime is down 6.6%. We continue to do very well in gang crime. Gang homicides are down 30%. Total gang crime is down 21%. All bureaus in the city show crime reductions. Personal statistics, we have 10,011 sworn personnel. We have 269 Level 1 reserves, 21 Level 2 reserves, 128 Level 3 reserves, 371 specialist volunteers, 34 chaplains, 2,829 civilian personnel, and we have 518 civilian vacancies. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Chief. Report of the Executive Director.
Morning, Madam President, members of the Commission. One brief item is in consultation with the President, and due to the short work week this week with the 4th of July holiday on Thursday, there's not sufficient time to turn an agenda around for the meeting of July 9th, so there'll be no meeting on July 9th. Our next regular meeting will be July 16th. That concludes my report.
With wishes for all for a very safe 4th of July. The report of the Inspector General.
Thank you, Madam President. Commissioners, just a brief note on our community efforts as they're continuing. We've recently met with the Asian Pacific American Legal Center, its president, and some of its staff regarding some of the issues that they have and some of the concerns that they have with Los Angeles Police Department and just generally policing in cities large as Los Angeles. We also have coming next week the city's Interfaith Iftar Dinner. I'll be next Wednesday. I'll be attending. I went to that last year. It's a very inclusive working dinner representing multiple faiths. It's an excellent opportunity for the IG's office to continue its outreach to the various individuals and community members, religions, people in the community, and we'll continue our efforts.
And I really appreciate it, Inspector General, and the staff of Inspector General. It's a small staff, but you have been extraordinarily active each and every week within the community, and I know all of us as commissioners appreciate it very much. Number 5 is information filed items. We have noise variance permits on file, and we also have special event permits on file. More details are in the agenda, including any of the protests. Are there any presentations?
No, Madam President.
And on our consent agenda items, A through G, is there a motion?
Madam President, I move approval of consent agenda items 7A through 7G.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Approved. Thank you. All right, we have on our regular agenda, we will be hearing both A and B, and let us start with
Thank you, Madam President. While Assistant Inspector General Kevin Rogan comes to the table, I wanted to give you a brief update on a change in the audit format. What you had actually read is a little bit of a difference in the way that we're reporting audits and the way we will be reporting them going forward. Our focus now is to simplify the audit report and try to, instead of being dense with the information, try to make it a little bit more, a little easier reading for the Commission, the Department, and the community, and have whatever tables or substantive information we have in the appendices. And I think you'll see that in this report, it's not as heavy as the previous audit reports. As the Commission has repeatedly asked the Inspector General, our office, to look at is the risk management factors within the department. And what we've tried to do is, from various angles, look at this issue throughout the year. And this audit represents just one of our efforts to look at that issue. As the report indicates, the department actions result in liability of the city in 4 distinct categories: police professional liability, automobile liability, employment practices liability, and general liability. The audit that you have before you focuses exclusively on the employment practice liability aspects. What we reviewed, among other things, were the costs associated with employment-related litigation, the manner of tracking specific lawsuits, the training or other actions that the department implemented as a result of some of this litigation. And what we found was from 2006 to 2012, department employment-related litigation cost the city approximately $31 million, and that there was an additional $42 million in what I would refer to as overhead costs. That's the cost of defending it and preparing any litigation on behalf of the city. Our audit specifically looks at 27 of the 99 cases during this time frame that were either settled or adjudicated, or if there were any particular adverse jury verdicts. And each case was selected based upon the high initial demand or the large payout by the city. And as a result of our audit, we developed 7 recommendations that are intended to reduce the number of lawsuits, to better track those lawsuits that do arise, and to better learn from these closed lawsuits. Those were listed at the end of our report, and after discussions with the department, they generally agree with each of these recommendations. And pending any questions you might have, myself and Assistant Inspector General Kevin Rogan are here for you.
Inspector General, I think it's a very excellent report that you put together, but the results are horrible. The findings, my reading of this is a fail across the board. And at the end, we have with the exception of the department initiating its own investigation of the complaints. For that, it seems it's almost 100%. So for the department looking into it, it's good. But for all the other, the tracking and everything else, it's just, I'm not, would you agree with me? This is just a fail?
Well, if you're asking me, I think that you need to hear the department's response. I think that what you have in front of you is the Inspector General's version of events, and I think we have a response that you should consider before you make a final judgment.
Well, I guess that's what I'm getting at here. It seems that some of this stuff should, any normal law firm would be keeping track of their files, keeping track.
Well, what I would ask is you let the department respond, and then we have this conversation.
And maybe we hear from Commissioner Druyan for a moment, too.
Let me say a couple things. I went back and looked at the quarterly report from the risk managers, and the department identified the need for getting lessons learned from the closed cases, and also training based upon those lessons learned as 2 of the objectives for the risk manager in the employment litigation specifically going forward. So I think the department has identified those 2 of those areas, and as we talked about when Mr. Chalick presented the report earlier, or actually last month, we need to start getting specific going forward, and determine what the department is doing in terms of lessons learned and training from those lessons learned. So I do think those things are on the department's agenda. The thing that I think caused me the most concern from reading the Inspector General's report was the lack of maintaining case files for any period of time, case being closed and then the case files being destroyed, and that would, it seemed to me, limit significantly the risk manager's ability to go through those cases for lessons learned and for then training based upon those lessons learned. So that to me was the most, the point that was of most concern to me. The fact that the department historically has not done a good job with lessons learned and with training is obviously a major area of concern. But I do want to point out, I think that was an issue that was identified by the risk manager in her report last month, and I do think that both the department and the risk manager appear to be in agreement that that needs to be done going forward. So those are my comments.
And I was thinking we could turn to the department.
Yeah, I would agree, and I'll just make a couple of brief comments, and then Mr. Taylor and others can provide the department's response. I mean, I think that, as the Chief indicated, that's appropriate. I certainly agree with Commissioner Druyan regarding the, this practice of destroying, or at least, destroying records, which, frankly, does make it impossible for risk manager to take a look at lessons learned and come up with recommendations to address this issue. Because the reality is that, just looking at the numbers, these numbers are off the chart in terms of the cost to the city, and we have to get a handle on it. One area that I'm particularly interested, one additional area I'm particularly interested in is the whole area of mediation. You know, this is something that we have discussed now for several years, and everybody has agreed in concept or in principle that mediation may be another tool at helping us get our arms around this whole issue, the idea of bringing a complainant and together with an officer on a voluntary basis in an attempt to resolve some of these, some of their specific problems, you know, prior to this thing escalating and getting out of control. So I think we need to really focus on early implementation of mediation.
And I agree. And I think, I mean, my frustration has been it's taken a long time to get the risk management department up and running. But I do think, based upon the last report, that the department is poised to move forward and to start making implementing specific programs in all of the areas, and hopefully to address the concerns that were raised by the Inspector General's report. But I think we should turn it over to the department and hear from Mr. Chaliff and Ms. Correa.
You know, let me, if I may, let me frame this before they respond. First, I think that that the department has opportunities to do better here. So don't take any of my statements as defensive or downplaying our need to make improvement here. But I think you have to put this in perspective. The city of Los Angeles pays less in total, less per capita, and less per officer than the other two big cities in America, than New York or Chicago. This is not just an LA issue. This is a law enforcement issue. So you have to look at it that way. You can't just look at this as the LAPD is not doing well, because that's not true. We're doing much better than the other two big city police departments. The second thing is that the department has a partner in risk management, the city attorney's office. Our new city attorney and I have discussed this before he took office and on his first day in office. He is very desirous of an improved relationship, of a team effort in reducing liability, and he has he and I are putting together our staffs to meet next week on this exact issue. He, like I, do not want to place blame among the two departments. What we want to do is find a mutual solution to move forward and make this a better process. I think that is something that gets left out of this discussion too often. So with those two pillars framing this, I will ask Jerry and Beth to respond more fully to the pieces of the audit.
Chief, before they do that, I want to respond to a point you made with respect to the city attorney's office, and I think you are right on in terms of the need for enhanced coordination between the department and the city attorney's office to identify these risk management issues early on, to improve the process, and ultimately to improve the process for the resolution of lawsuits as well. And President Orton and I had a series of meetings in the last quarter with members of your staff and also with the city attorney's office at that point to try to develop some protocols to enhance this process. And we ultimately decided to wait since the election had occurred and we had a new city attorney before getting back involved with those protocols. But I think Chief, you're absolutely correct that the city attorney's office is a key partner in this, and we need to develop protocols that really allow us to identify the risks, mitigate the risks, and within the litigation, reduce the cost to the city as well.
And that's, as I said, that's high on the city attorney's priority list. That's high on my priority list. We've already begun that discussion. Those were one of the very first actions he took upon taking office. I know it's important to him, and he wanted me to express that to the commission today. I'm doing so. I think that there's value in this report. We don't agree with everything that's in it, as Jerry will put forward. But I think that we have a great opportunity here as a department, as a commission, as a city, to do a better job. And just because we're doing better than other big cities doesn't mean we can't do better. So with that, Jerry.
Sure.
Yes,
My turn?
Yes, it's your turn.
All right. First of all, it's a little frustrating to sit here and listen to people form opinions based on only this audit without hearing from us at least a little bit. And let me put it in context too. First of all, the lawsuits involved in this were filed from 1999 to 2009. Things have changed. Some, I think, a little bit, certainly for the better since then, but those, as we all know, who practice in Los Angeles, particularly now with the court system going through its budget crisis, it takes longer for these lawsuits to get to trial and even be settled. The second part of the context is when I took over risk management was in 2005 or 2006, I immediately realized we had a major problem, which was there was a culture of filing. Every time there was a grievance, there was a culture of filing a lawsuit. And the previous history had been they settled them all. So basically, it was like people going to the bank and making a withdrawal. And I began to push back to the city attorney saying, let's try some of these. Even if we lose some of them, at least the word will get out that we're fighting. And that may discourage some of the people who are doing what they're doing, particularly some of the lawyers who realize now they may have to work to earn some money. So we had that was part of the context. The third part is it became really apparent to me that the city attorney certainly over the last 4 years didn't believe we were the client. Now you can look at the city charter and talk about who the client is, but certainly we're an employee of the client and high-level employees of the client, so they wouldn't share, some of the times they wouldn't even share information with us. And I remember specifically going to a meeting with city council members, the chief and myself, and the city attorney who tried to explain to us why he didn't tell us some things because we weren't the client. So we were trying to work on correcting that, and the whole time I have been there, and also Ms. Correa, we're always in constant contact with the city attorney about cases. They always call and ask us about settlements, whether they want to follow our advice or not, and they're the lawyers, so I understand that. But we know we have our investigators, both of us and the chief and others get a weekly report, and I think it's sent to you, about every lawsuit that's coming up, every settlement conference that's coming up, so there is a lot of coordination. But let me go through a few of the issues. First of all, this issue about destroying records. We may not maintain all the records we have because the city attorney has a copy of everything. So it's kind of a duplicative process for us to keep all these records. Anytime we've asked, we've been given copies. We have access to the city attorney files. I don't see the efficacy of having duplicate sets of records.
Isn't it required under the mayor's executive directive?
Do we keep our own records? Not that as I see it, since the city attorney is keeping all the records.
Doesn't the executive directive require the city departments to keep these records?
I don't know well, it's not my interpretation of that we duplicate records, but if somebody decides that's what they want, we can keep duplicates, but we then have a storage problem, and we then have a problem of why. Now, it might have been you that talked about law firms and destroying records. Law firms wouldn't do this because they're required by the state bar rules. I have a large bill I pay every month through Iron Mountain for the years that I practice, and I haven't practiced in 15 years, really.
Of course.
Because we have to.
My problem is reading the Inspector General's audit report,
Yes.
it seems that in the Inspector General's opinion, which is our opinion,
Okay.
that under the mayor's
If the-
executive directive, we're supposed to keep these
if the-
records, and let me conclude,
If I,
there were no records available for...
that's not true. If they had asked for records on a particular case, they may have come to us and said, where are they? We could have immediately gone and gotten from the city attorney. That's what we do. If you want us, if the commission wants the department to keep records, which are duplicates of everything the city attorney has, because they have everything, fine. The records we keep that the city attorney may not have are our complaint records that we file, that are for our complaint investigations, which they don't always have access to. But other than that, I saw no point in us keeping duplicate records, period.
The mayor's executive directive, perhaps you need to meet with the city attorney to discuss what's required.
Well,
because
as I
it
read,
seems
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. As I read what the mayor said, that it was we get timely notice and we keep a copy of the claims, and that and you go through all the rest. It doesn't
Discovery.
and discovery, but
Well, rather than argue this point, we'll meet with the city attorney, and if they believe that it's a requirement of the mayor's directive, we will keep duplicate
And
records.
I'll meet with the mayor's
but the point is that we do have access to these, and that we don't we're not ignorant of our past lawsuits, and we are able to look into them. I think that's the point.
Yes, and I'm sorry.
We'll talk about the interpretation of the directive.
And I recognize that if you go back to the report, that the department generally agrees with each recommendation.
Right.
And Inspector General, maybe you can help clarify.
Well, I think we got to clarify a little bit. There's been a lot of talk about duplicate files, and that there's a duplicate file from the city attorney's office. We're not talking about the litigation files that the city attorney's office keeps. What we're specifically talking about are department-generated information. So any of their lead sheets, any of the things that they're doing based upon requests, any of the timelines they're preparing, any of the things that they use when they're handling the case to investigate, that would be solely generated by the department. So there's a distinction between the actual litigation files and the stuff that's generated by the department, and that was actually discussed with the department staff on this. It's just so you clarify, kind of give a little background on how we operate on these audits, and I think that'll help sharpen some of the issues up for the commission. When we do an audit, we're generally working with the department along the way and letting them know what we're seeing and what we're not seeing. Before this audit actually gets published, we review it with principal people to make sure that it's accurate. We give them an opportunity to comment on it. We give them an opportunity to tell us where we're accurate, where we're not accurate, and then we will double check that information, and there's a long process that goes along with that. That process was employed here, and when I said in the back that it was generally, the recommendations were generally agreed upon, that was after lengthy discussions with high-level individuals within the department that were my point of contact for this audit. So there isn't the case that it's hide the ball by the IG's office or we're talking about apples and oranges. There's a general agreement of what the facts and circumstances are. It goes through. We have long conversations about where we might be getting it wrong from the IG, and we ask for additional detail, or where we might request some additional information to make sure that we do have it right. But this isn't a situation where we just drop a report and there is no conversation and we're not considering the other side. I want to make that clear, especially in this case. We're talking a little bit about apples and oranges.
if I could...
It might be helpful if we went even directly to the recommendations.
Well,
Because
can I make a few comments first?
certainly.
And there's obviously a communication issue here, but we do maintain records. The detectives maintain a case notebook that has a number of items in it, including a case synopsis, chronological record of what was done in the case, witness list, copies of the lawsuit, copies of the depositions, other complaint history of the people involved, teams reports, claims for damages, and other things. The things we're talking about that we didn't read. Go ahead. If you want to make a comment, go ahead.
No, that's exactly what I'm talking about, because that's listed on page 3, footnote 4 of his report, these casebook files. I think that's
Right.
what you referenced. And unless I'm reading this wrong, it says the department informed the OIG that these files were not available for review.
That's not true. We have the notebooks.
Then there's something wrong between...
Well, I said maybe it's a
Inspector General
communication
said.
issue.
May I ask the Inspector General to respond to that?
Sure, my staff-
Did you seek information and was, that was denied?
My staff repeatedly asked on this issue where there were files on this, and they asked to look at them. It's detailed in our report. When I was informed of the information, I made them go and double check and specifically talk to the Legal Affairs Department for this information. So if there is some miscommunication, we've checked and double checked and asked for them to provide the information so that we could do the analysis. That's why, as we note in the audit, we specifically asked for active files so that we maybe could do some of the analysis that we weren't able to do with some of the historical files. But again, our source of information when we go to the audit is actually the Legal Affairs Department. We ask their personnel, we ask for their files, and we ask them to provide us anything and everything related to our different testing areas.
Well, rather than do that, because I don't agree. The Inspector General talked about our use of a computer system, which we're not really using anymore. We're in fact devising a new system. The mediation system we agree with because we're working on it. There's a lot of moving parts to it, and I intend before the end of the summer to have at least all the protocols put in place so that we can do it. But if you want to go through each recommendation, we can. But I just want to say overall that maybe I'm having a problem communicating, but I think if you go through this report, there are a number of places where I would disagree. I'm more than happy to put it over so we can file something in writing if you want. But as the chief said, I think it's a little premature because we have a new city attorney. Let us work out something with them, and maybe a lot of this will go away. However this commission would like to proceed is fine. I think that
maybe it would be appropriate, you said there are areas where you disagree, maybe it would be appropriate for you to point those areas out.
If you want to, I'll do it right now, if you want me to.
Yes. I
didn't think this was necessarily the way we needed to go on this because of
well, I mean, if there's
the new relationship.
substantive differences, I mean, I think there should be aired here.
For example,
Respectfully, all we have is what he's provided to us.
I got this last week. And I wasn't even, I'm on a day off today. I was getting out because of the importance
I understand
of this.
that. I understand that. This is a very short time frame. And we want the best analysis here, and perhaps you need some time to respond to this, and we can just hold this over. Because there was something I wanted the Inspector General to add to this. And his recommendations is if there's a time frame for when these recommendations are going to be implemented, I would like to see that too. So perhaps we do need some time.
If I can suggest, if the commission is willing to hold this over, we'll write a response. But I don't want to turn this into is all about these minor details. This is not what this is about. This is about improving the system. We have an incredible opportunity to improve this system. If we go crazy over which files are not being kept and which ones are, and whether or not that inhibits me from doing an analysis, I think we're wasting an opportunity. So let us respond. Let us give you a timeline on the recommendations we agree with, which is most of them. And we'll go from there. And I think that one of the things that the city attorney and I talked about is including the commission in the meeting next week. I think that's the most important thing that can happen out of this. I don't think that just going back and forth about these details is something we need to do.
I agree with you.
If I may, I would agree. But that's why I used the term. If there are substantive differences,
and I think that's the important part.
We don't need to quibble over minor points.
I think that's the important piece. So if I could ask the commission to do that, then it looks like the commission's in general agreement. I think it would be the right way forward.
If I express my concern, Chief, just to respond to the Chief's points is I would agree with you. I don't care about minutia and I don't care about small details. My concern is, as Commissioner Julian stated just a moment ago, is that we look to see what's happened, we learn from what's happened, we, if necessary, change our practices or change our litigation strategy or something else to see what's happened.
Absolutely, and nobody disagrees with that.
I agree, but I think in order to do that, I think sometimes you need to have a complete record, like, for example, just like we do in private practice. We look and say, we're in front of Judge X, and it's a employment discrimination case. We know how he views things, or even something as basic as that. You can't, in my opinion, you can't do that analysis unless you have the backup to go through it, because these things don't happen consecutively. Sometimes they happen years apart, but the result could be the
Well,
same. That's my concern here.
Nobody disagrees with that. Now whether the department, in combination with the city attorney, and remember it's a combination here, has the records that are accessible to do that. That's a small point of contention here. We'll look into that. If there is any indication to me or to Jerry or to Beth that we need to make a change, then we will. Absolutely. We don't. This is not about wanting to have less information. You're well aware of the department's ability to keep information.
Absolutely, and I think that's why the department's been so successful.
So I would suggest that we take that we move forward.
If I could just, I'd like to do that, which is why I suggested it. Second of all, if Commissioner Bernardino would like to, I would be more than happy to take him over to where we are, and we can show him our filing retention system and show him what the city attorney has to show that what we have, so we're speaking more of as a team and all of the other parts of this. There's one part, though, I think shouldn't be left just sitting out there, which is the part about what happens with judgments and complaints. That we get a history, every complaint that comes in, every lawsuit becomes a complaint. And on this one, there was one, and I have to figure out what happened to that one. But that was a prime part of the consent decree. It's something we've worked on for 12 years, and it seems to be a system that works real well, because even as soon as a claim comes in, which is the precursor normally to an action against the city, that goes over and becomes a complaint. When a civil rights action is filed in federal court, same thing. The claims people send it to us, and oh, my phone is, excuse me for a second. They gave me this new phone, and I don't know how to turn it off. But trying to correlate what happens in a lawsuit with whether or not somebody should be disciplined, I think, is an inappropriate correlation, as this commission knows with decisions it makes and some that we make. There are a number of issues that go into what juries do based on what judges do, what lawyers do. And again, to go back to what you said about lessons learned and all the rest, we do that, but we're not the lawyers. As much as it frustrates me as a lawyer who's practiced for a long time, and I'd like to be the lawyer, we're not the lawyers. So it's a communal activity, but the lawyer's in charge.
Of course.
So that's why, as the chief says, it's a new dawn. Or as a former president said, it's a new day where we have a new city attorney with a new desire on how he wants to do things, and we can work together. What I'd like to do is put this over for a long enough period of time that we can see what the city attorney wants, how he wants to proceed with us, letting the two staffs together. Turns out the chief deputy is somebody who's, I think, a number of us know, who was a partner at Gibson, Dunn & Crutcher, somebody I know very well, and I think some of the commissioners do, and I think it was a litigation partner, will understand the issues relating to litigation, and we can come up with what we're doing and timelines of what we're doing, because even the protocols we agreed on with the prior office, we can implement those as soon as the new city attorney agrees that's what we should do.
Well, but I think there are some of the things I agree with you are clearly things that need to be coordinated between the department and the city attorney's office, and I see that very person in the audience
Yes,
you're speaking to. But some of the things I think are more internal to the department. For example, lessons learned. And going back to your very point, what a jury may do is not necessarily correlates with whether what an officer did is tactically sound or in policy or things like that. So you have to, there are two things that are going on here. One is the management of the risk from a litigation perspective, and two is the management of the risk from within the department, lessons learned and things like that. And what caused me the concern about not having the files, and we debate what that means, is that the department needs to have available to it the results of litigation in order to do the kinds of lessons learned analysis that you guys indicated in your last report that you're going to be doing. And with respect to just the whole dialogue here, leaving aside the question of what the mayor's directive might require, and that is obviously going to govern, But my concern is to make sure that the department maintains the files for a sufficient period of time in order to do the lessons learned analysis and then translate that into training. Let me just finish, Jerry. My recognizing that the files may be available from the city attorney's office, so that at least there's that potential to get them. It's just harder for the department to conduct its own internal lessons learned through the risk management department if it doesn't have the files itself for some period of time.
If I act a little frustrated, I am. And the reason is not because of what anybody's doing, but just the fact that obviously I'm not telling the story as adequately as I should. The lessons learned aspect doesn't start at the end of the case for us. It starts at the beginning. We are fully briefed, both Ms. Correa and myself, on lawsuits that are filed, what the allegations are, and as it's going along, we get information about what the depositions, what the people are saying. So we're starting, and in fact, we're now doing it even before. When we hear of problems, whether there's a lawsuit filed or not, we convene a group to discuss what the issue is, and in the past, we have reversed transfer orders, we have moved people, we have talked to people about what their concerns were. We've had other workplace people go in to try to reduce the number of lawsuits, and I can say we've only had 8 lawsuits filed this year compared to the average of 26. So I think we're doing better this year than we have in the past. But each year has to be, you have to have more of a trend than just one year. So the point being is, we don't wait till the end and then gather a bunch of documents and say what are the lessons learned. We start at the beginning, and to make sure we know what's happened. For example, if it all comes out of one unit, the lawsuit gets filed because of discrimination in a unit, we need to start looking at that to see if in fact there's something we should do immediately, and we've done it in the past. So I don't want it to be left that it looks like the lessons learned only waits till the end. And I don't want to get into the issue of what documents we retain or not, but I have never not been given what I needed, or Ms. Correa needed. But just so you understand that it's not the lessons learned only at the end, it's lessons learned all the way through.
I hear you. And let me just say, reading the report, the quarterly report dated June 4th, I took away from this report that there really wasn't a historical effort to do the lessons learned, and that this was one of the goals that the risk manager had identified as something that was going to be done on a going forward basis. So, and as Chief MacArthur and I had the dialogue last time when she appeared, going forward in the risk manager's report, we're going to need more specificity on what the department is doing and how it's carrying these things out, and then that'll, I think, hopefully.
And you'll get that. That's what we'll be giving.
Let's do this. We have the IG report. We have the quarterly report, so a lot of it has already been written, exactly where things are. We have 7 recommendations in which I believe the department generally agrees with each and every one of them, so that in order to have the record clear about what already has been done and what already is in process for going forward, perhaps in the next 3 weeks we can have a written report that is directed only to these recommendations. In the meantime, we know that meetings are going to be going forward with the city attorney's office. They started 6 months ago, and Jerry was there, and we've all been working on this. There's been frustration on the part of the department. There's been frustration on the part of the commission. I hope there's been frustration on the part of the city attorney's office. And I know that the things are, as you say, a new day. So we're going to start meeting. That's independent of any reports. But to get the record straight, we'll ask for a response here on what you think of the recommendations and how to clarify some of the other issues. And in the meantime, I hope that within months we'll have a protocol that makes sense to the department, to the commission, and the city attorney.
I would certainly agree, Madam President. I think that would be the appropriate course. And just add one other thought in terms of response to the recommendations. I think there should be built-in specific timelines in terms of the implementation of these recommendations as well. Because personally, I mean, I agree with practically, well, much of what's been said, but I'm particularly concerned about, the mediation, which has been hanging out there for a long time. We understand why, for a period of time, there was a need to delay, but there's no longer a need to delay, in my opinion. So that, and as well as all the other recommendations, I think we should have. And as Mr. Chalif has done in the past, I mean, in various
I put timelines in
put
everything.
timelines in.
Yes,
So let's make
that's
sure.
what I was going to say. I always do, because otherwise...
Make sure we're clear about that.
I'm clear. Otherwise, it just floats out there. 3 weeks would be the 28th. It is summertime, so we'll do the best we can for people, and I think
Richard has a suggestion on this.
The date would be the 23rd. 3 weeks from today would be July 23rd.
I'm sorry, I added 1 week on.
If you could do it on the
that works.
23rd, because I'm going to come on the following week.
I'll do the best I can.
I think so much of it is done in your quarterly
Well,
reports and in other places.
It's done in relation to where we're going. It's not necessarily done in to.
We'll be able to meet the 23rd.
Yeah, I know that, but my concern is
Thanks.
that we'll do it. But my concern is that people have an impression of what we're not doing that I don't think is accurate. So it will
It will be
require.
in there.
It'll be in there, and that's the part that may require a little more documentation, which I will make sure it gets done. And I apologize for being frustrated, but I was.
That's okay,
So-
but on that point, though, getting back to an earlier point that Chief said, I don't think it's important to clarify, but it's also important we not become engaged in a back and forth defensive kind of.
And we won't.
We won't. What I
We'll
intended.
work on that. Let me finish this, Jerry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you. We'll meet the 23rd. We'll keep it general, because I think the real important work is what is to come with the new city attorney. And I think that we have I'll say it again, the city has an incredible opportunity here to do much better, and nobody argues that. But then again, I think you have to put it in context. These are big organizations that deal in conflict, make life and death decisions, and there is some liability that accrues with that.
It's about what I was going to say. The only part you'll see are the context, what we're doing and what we intend to do, not a point-by-point issue. That's all.
I move that we approve the Inspector General's office, and we direct the department to respond with a report on July 23rd.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Approved. Thank you. Thank you all. On to B, which is the department's report on the handling of the mentally ill audit.
One of them is wrong, right?
If it was easy, anybody could do it.
You're exactly right, sir.
I know. I felt like I was in a mirror house or something.
Welcome.
Good morning. My name is Bert Moore. Along with me is Police Performance Auditor 3, Hank Wang, who performed the audit. First, I'd like to thank...
Commander Blake.
And Commander Blake.
Thank you. First, I'd like to thank the staff of MEU for assisting us with completing this audit. In this audit, we had 3 objectives: disposition codes for accuracy, notification to MEU when required, and verification that training was completed when recommended. In our first objective, we had 39 service calls that we checked for accuracy regarding dispos. 29 were disposed correctly. However, it is important to note that during the course of this audit, we found that there was a technical problem that may have been the cause of some of these missed dispositions. For objective number 2, we had 50 incidents that required notification to MEU. Of those 50, 48 MEU was contacted. For objective number 3, we had 8 reports that recommended training. 5 were for non-CATs, 3 were for categorical uses of force, and in each case, training was completed as required. And that completes my summary of the audit.
Good morning.
Good morning.
There were a few things that the Office of Operations and Detective Bureau worked together on to ensure that we remind our officers and to keep the issue of DISPO codes accurate, because we know how important that is ultimately when we're looking and analyzing what really the dispositions are and what that means to us is how we're handling our community members that suffer from mental illness. So the first thing we did is we reissued OO Order Number 8. We also created a notice that was a reminder for all officers to be able to review and ensure that the DISPO codes are used and are accurate. Specifically banning them from one of the big issues was officers call completed. You know, that's one that we typically use on multiple different stops or any kind of a call. So when they do that, they quickly do it, and sometimes that becomes a habit. So it's something we had to break them of. Also, the director of OO provided these documents to OO direct reports and explained the need for supervision to play a key role in this. So he had asked that lieutenants and sergeants are really looking at our DFARs and verifying that the DISPO codes on DFARs are going to be accurate. All that to say, that and the field notebook divider being updated were the practical issues that we did. But there is one thing I wanted to point out just a little bit off of that topic to the Commission during our analysis of all of this. I met with Chuck Dempsey, who is also the MEU coordinator in this situation, and we wanted to tell you that we've got some systems in place that are really kind of crossing over in our organization and how we can hold our officers and ourselves accountable for it, for the treatment of and or the categorization and overall improvement of our department when it comes to the mentally ill. We've seen some good results as a result of some of our accountability measures. And what we're doing is we're seeing that it's improving our officers and the way they provide service, and also makes them better officers. As Detective Bureau tracks these cases, they're sending out these MEU officers, and they're out educating our officers. So even on those cases where the officers may not know what is going on exactly, the MEU officers on the great majority of these calls are actually educating our officers and helping them to better understand those in our community who are suffering from mental illness. And then ultimately cause behavioral concerns that sometimes result in violent actions, which involves uses of force with our organization. As we developed our officers, we then are also looking at CompStat. In CompStat, we consistently hold our captains accountable for uses of force, non-categorical uses of force. And while they start to look at that, we expect them to know comprehensively and to understand what goes on in each one of their uses of force. Frequently, when it comes to non-categorical uses of force, they typically will get to the issue of the number of mental illness-related uses of force. And always you'll see these captains jumping right on the issue of training, roll call training, supervisor training, and all of that. So as a result, I'm kind of proud after talking and interacting with Detective Bureau that we can brag that over the 11,000 contacts that we have with people suffering from mental problems, we use force on approximately 1.9%. Which is a very, very low number, especially nationally. So something that I thought you might be interested in to show that we are seeing success in multiple areas with our mental evaluation unit.
Commander Blake, I live in the Valley, and I was able to observe some of the officers dealing in a mental health issue on occasion when I just happened to be there. And I have to tell you, they acted with such compassion and care for the individuals. It's just unfortunate, just from a perspective that so many people, suffer from mental illness and need help, and often their only help is from us or the fire department. So, I think that being said, the report I think is good, and I've seen it with my own eyes, and I can attest to that, what you're talking about. So,
thank you. I think we have a lot to be proud of our officers.
I think if it's not the toughest thing that the department has to deal with, it's one of them. And so I'm just very impressed with the work you've done.
With that, that's all I have.
Any other comments?
No.
And thank you for all you're doing to
move
improve
approval.
the situation. Yes.
Second.
Comment card coming up.
Those call.
We do have one comment card. We have Yvonne Michelle Autry.
Thank you for your report. I'd like to remind you that in dealing with this very delicate issue, because I know in serving and protecting and serving the community as peace officers, I think it's good that you continue to hear from the community so that you are reminded that we are innocent until proven guilty, and that the police do not have the authority or the jurisdiction to mete out any type of punishment or justice. And in many cases with people who have been either righteously diagnosed with mental challenges or misdiagnosed, whatever the case may be, that many times the officers, not only in exerting excessive force and abuse of their authority, mete out justice because they're considered undesirable, somehow defective to their standard. And that is completely in violation, I believe, of what your code is, or just what your purpose is in serving and serving and policing our community. You're supposed to appropriately restrain the person if they are violent or if they're posing a threat to you or the community, so that they can be heard before a jury of their peers and or a judge, especially in situations where the people are economically challenged, homeless, black people, people of color, and also in cases where people might have been misdiagnosed. Again, there are people that have been victims of suspicious activity reports. Quite possibly they're economically challenged in the street, but again, they deserve the same consideration as, again, you're not terrorizing the community, you're serving and protecting all of us equally. Homeless, wealthy, mentally ill, or healthy and sane people as well. I'd just like to remind you for that sensitivity, if you could incorporate it into that, some of your refresher training for your officers. It's always good to keep them sensitive. Thank you.
That is the only comment card.
Madam President, I move approval of the department's report.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Public comment?
We have two. We have Sakis I'm sorry, I can't pronounce it. Arkadjanian, and then we have Yvonne Michelle Autry.
Good morning.
Good morning.
On 25 April, about 60600 in Westwood Park, unprovoked, I was brutally assaulted by a drug-deranged psychopath. I called 911, 2 police officers arrived, took the report. I went to the ER in the VA, no broken bones, I'm okay. Went to West LAPD to file the report. 2 weeks later, I saw this individual call 911. Police officer showed up, took his ID, said, "Is this the man?" I said, "I'm not absolutely sure," because he was wearing a hat. There were some circumstances. I was assigned to Detective Simmons at West LA for assault. I constantly kept contact with her, as where I had seen him, and there's a witness to this also, to the entire thing. And at first she said, "Don't worry, we'll get him." And then complete disregard. No due diligence. This is a joke. I'm 67 years old. I've been living in my car for 17 years, 9 at Westwood Park. I've been using that bathroom for 2 years in the morning. That man is a transient, not me. You know where you can find me. I'm homeless. Who cares? I'm a citizen of the United States. I have every title anyone in Beverly Hills has. Now, I have accused Detective Simmons of being inept, inexperienced, and incompetent. But I do smell corruption in politics. Chief, I'm giving you 24 hours to arrest this man, or you'll be seeing me for a long time. Get this man.
Yvonne Michelle Autry.
I'd just like to take this opportunity to remind you of making positive change, that we are advocating that in altering the status quo, that you commend officers that are truly serving and protecting all constituents, regardless of color or economic situation. In creating positive change, when we submit valid complaints, those officers are to be reviewed if they're found guilty, which never happens. Okay, never happens. That those particular officers are investigated and that they're prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. That's the way you create positive change. You do not simply incriminate the whistleblower as crazy. Do not disregard our complaints as unfounded, because this does not create positive change. You have to, stop incriminating the victims and the whistleblowers. Stop making us look like we're insane, bipolar, manic depressive, schizophrenic, psychotic, paranoid, delusional. That's ridiculous. And we expose the officers, we submit the reports, we take the time to submit the complaints. At this time, I'd like to remind you, as last week, I was falsely accused of a terrorist threat charge by one Deborah Vargas about 5 years ago, and thank God she confessed before the city attorney. Deborah Vargas confessed to provoking me and trapping me and trying to frame me. She was calling me racial slurs, black whores, black bitches, niggas, but you have to understand what's happening. Deborah Burton has also similarly been falsely accused of assault with a deadly weapon, which was really a toy, in a protest, which was legal. We have a right to organize. We have a right to demonstrate. And it's a farce. It's a waste of money. The woman is a legal and a law-abiding citizen. She's a highly respected member of Los Angeles Community Action Network, and we believe that these charges should be dropped. The trial is ongoing. They're picking the jury as we speak, and it's a complete farce just to discourage her and other members of LA Can from exposing excessive use of force and police brutality.
And that is the final card, Madam President.
Thank you. We will now adjourn to closed session. Thank you.
The Board of Police Commissioners will now recess into closed session to discuss item number 10A1 in accordance with Government Code 54957.
Christy Odom in Los Feliz. You're watching LA City View, Channel 35. Our city, our channel. Would you like a mustache with that?
On this episode of At Your Library, we discover that your Los Angeles Public Library is a center for lifelong learning. From improving your English to hitching a ride on Route 66. Wherever your interests lie, we're there. So stop by and expand your mind at your library. I'm Franklin Delano Neely, and welcome back to At Your Library, your guide to the incredible world of the Los Angeles Public Library. No matter how young or old you are, the library is your one-stop destination for lifelong success. The keys to improving your personal and professional lives are at your fingertips. From special programs to special collections, the library is a tuition-free university of the mind that anyone of any age can attend at any time. On today's program, we're going to explore lifelong learning at the library and look at just a few of the resources waiting for you at your Los Angeles Public Library. To begin our quest, Andrew Tarr with